Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirit Saga video. And today we're going to be talking about the top 16 lists from the Grand Open that happened just this past weekend in Palm Springs, which is the first official Grand Open of this new meta that we have, but also right before the tournament packs were legal. So this is meant to be more of like a launching ground for where I think the meta is going to go from here. And obviously congrats to everyone who got their Pro Tour invites and all that, but it's going to be, I think, the building block, right, that every other following Grand Open is now going to be built off of. And what's really important to note, quick, disclaimer, editor's note here up front, but there's a lot of the word aggro being thrown around, like Curse aggro and Fabled Beast aggro, and that couldn't be further from the truth, right? So just from an overall meta standpoint discussion here, there is Rex aggro and White aggro. Those are fair, what you would expect. The Curse deck that we're going to be talking about is much more mid-range, and Fabled Beast, depending on how you use some of those flex spots, is mid-range at best, or control if you go all into like the heavy white supporting package. So there's a lot of like, oh, the vast majority of the meta, it's all aggro decks, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, obviously, aggro did very well this past weekend, and there is going to be a focus point on how do we beat the white aggro and red aggro decks. And spoiler, there's a really good list in here that I think is going to change the meta significantly. But overall, a really good showing just in terms of, okay, we have aggro, we have mid-range, we have control. There's a very good archetypal diversity, even if that the, what did you say, color diversity was a little bit lacking in that regard. Now, I will say it was I almost wanted to put it in there, but there was a 17th spot deck list that was purple as well. We have an interview coming out tomorrow on that, as well as interviewing a very, very solid purple control players. So a lot of things to come this week in terms of just like meta discussion content. Still going to be working on doing a recording video, but enough of that out of the way. That's kind of more what's to come. Let's get into the deck list themselves. So as I mentioned, we are going to start things off with the first place list. And again, just kind of going through these, talking about the highest performing list of each version and just kind of walking it through the top 16 that way, right? So obviously huge congrats to Tim. You got that beautiful, just gorgeous baby gold Siegworm Nova card. Honestly, it's one of my favorite artworks of Nova. I think people who play Boomer Battle Spears, as we like to call it now, know that artwork very well, and you either love it or hate it, but I think it's the better one. Just personally, I think the majority lean towards that one being the better one. So it was really tempted to, throw an offer on it, but that's just too much when I want to try to travel to some of the later events coming up. But again, huge shout out to Tim Rivera, our Grand Open Palm Springs champion. So what won? Well, of course, to no surprise for those who are either testing the format coming out of the Vegas launch event, which, reminder, was a very slow mid-range control, like just dredge on style of meta, and it quickly shifted thanks to the True Duelist team that put up so many Rex aggro lists, right, that said, hey, we're kind of just playing this game wrong, we being like the broader community sense. And I truly believe that like once you get past the Vegas meta, right, like we were all learning the game together at that point. That was the first major event. This event, the Palm Springs Grand Open, I feel is the first true look at the set one meta. Now that more people have come together, they've been brewing the list, they've got a chance to play against these aggro decks, which, as many people have either found out or have done through testing or watching this event or otherwise, is you gotta have a game plan against them. So what is Rex, right? For those that don't know, it is just your super resilient, playing a bunch of, 5K or higher attackers that chip through in the early game. And of course, the objective is to get your opponent's life down to 0. So having just big body red spirits, or in white spirits like the white aggro, if they're not going wide, they have some nice 5K bodies there as well. Just chipping their life away is quite good. What's nice about red, however, is the Scorch Battlefield plan, or what I really liked in Tim's version, shout out to Flame Rat, right? Like that, I would love to see what Tim has to say about how important that was in certain matchups, especially like white control gets a slower start. You can just jam a Flame Rat, get a draw off the start, right? It's a card that I liked in some of the other red lists, but something we haven't really seen in a lot of the Rex decks, or at least the lists that I've seen, right? We've seen a lot more of like, the Bearded Eagle, Diaphosa, Trooper, like Drago, Tyrannoid, Dynaman Trianoid, sorry, that's a 6K body. Like those are all the standards package, but I really do like the Flame Rat here making a special guest appearance. And there probably was some other Rex lists that included or, had it in some combination, but really like to see it here as just a, Obviously, it can still get hit by Burning Force. I think that's one of the major drawbacks as to why you cut it. Yes, you get in your first attack. If you have a Scorched Battlefield, it goes up to 4k, so you're still threatening to connect with it. But on your opponent's turn, they can Burning Force it anyways, and then you're losing some of that, stickiness that things like Eagle, Delphosa, or Tyrannoid give you in the red package. So really just an overall very solid, resilient aggro deck. You have Rex at the top end as well, which is going to be giving you 3,000 power to your team, and that lasts through the turn. So very, very aggressive strategy coming online. In terms of sideboarding, right, we do have some Flame Rats for the Flame Fish, for the Mirror other aggro decks. You have Andromeda for Andromeda for Nexus, Derm Dyna for the control matchups, just getting through that chip damage, where I think some of the lists had 1 and 2 Derm Dyna main. So that's one of the little flex spots that you're seeing, and then just some other sideboard stuff. So again, in terms of going towards Ohio and other events to kind of look forward to, be it your locals, be it a grand open that might be happening in your region, or store championships, right, coming up behind that, this absolutely needs to be something kind of in your back pocket that you're testing. If you haven't been testing against this a lot already, it is playing for Ice Shield. So that is, something that might be a little bit on the expensive side. Expensive being like less than 200, which is cheaper in the general trading card game community terms, but is more expensive for the Bondi. And you might say, hey, how about a list with no absolute Ice Shield? Because I don't want to pay the $30 per right now. What if I want to spend just $30 for a deck? And to be fair, it's a little bit more than $30 now because Valkyrie Mist is on the rise. It was $6 now last that I looked, but we do have the second place list with Admasu Williams playing the white aggro deck. And again, this one I really got to give a big shout out, going all the way back to Vegas, going to the Brendan Bremont interview that we did, and obviously doing well with it in Vegas, getting the top 32. But this is a list, or an archetype, I should just be more general here, that a lot of people were saying like, no, it's fake. It doesn't have Ice Shield. It can never be competitive. It's just fake. Who would ever play this horrible, horrible list, right? No one is going to lose to this. And honestly, it was just kind of annoying to listen to over the last month. But we really got to give a huge shout out to this budget-friendly white aggro list that did very, very well. And I'm going to be honest, I still think it's a very nice deck to pick going forward. We might have some more meta developments here, but it is just a very explosive deck that when compared against Rex, right? So the white aggro deck has much stronger get you dead openers where it can just gas out really, really quickly. And that's why they do have the Derm Dynas to try to get in that last point of chip damage you really need. But in general, this is one that wants to end the game a lot quicker than compared to, say, Rex, which can play a slightly slower, matchup, lean into Scorched Battlefields, lean into your bigger bodies, and just kind of block out and get value that way. So it was interesting to see how this got as well as far as it did, and I do expect this to see more of. The one thing that I really do need to give a shout out for this list in particular that was very, very nice to see that Admasu kind of flexed in, and I had to go back because we were talking about in the Discord, and I had to double check myself. So in independent testing with like Primitive and those guys, the team I as well, give them a shout out. We were already testing Mobile Golem because you just needed it for the red matchup. But after someone in the Discord commented out, they're like, no, that hasn't really been a thing. Like, oops, this is, tech that wasn't public yet, I guess. So really nice to see. The full 4 Mobile Golems going up to a 7k blocker is just beefy against those red units they want to be playing. And then, of course, we even have the 2 of the 4-drop. They can go up to 9k if you really, really need to. But, really recognizing that Rex was in the meta, it's something that you had to plan for. Obviously got as far as second place. So 1, Pro Tour invite, lots of money, all that good stuff. But really showing that not every deck needs absolute Ice Shield, and that is something that's been such a hot topic over the last month. I'm so happy they're able to clutch out a second place finish here to just show that and bring the spotlight to it, right? And I think that it warrants a discussion going forward, just like from an overall standpoint. There will be other decks that play 0 absolute Ice Shield, and that is correct. I know that sounds crazy if you're looking, outside looking in for the game, or maybe you haven't played this list enough yet, because it took me by surprise admittedly the first time too, but no, 0 absolute Ice Shield is correct, and I think it's something that we will see more aggro decks in the future adopt, because you just have that explosive of openers where it's not going to matter if you have the absolute Ice Shield or not. So Great budget option. Obviously, I think Durham Dyna and Valkyrie Mist are probably the two most expensive cards in here. Everything else is just bulk you can pick up from your locals. So at the very least, if you're interested in the game, even though, you know, an aggro deck might not be the most exciting thing to get new players in with, but if you want a free and otherwise very cheap to finish out deck, if someone can give you literally every card in this other than Durham Dyna and Valkyrie Mist, you spend $20, get the rest of that, you're golden, right? I think this is a very good list for a lot of people just to start with because it's cheap and it will, surprise, win some games. And we'll definitely see this again in Ohio and probably other Grand Opens, right? Because I think there's 2 Grand Opens before Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely look forward to it. Kevin, in top 4 with Fabled Beast, a man after my own heart. I gotta say, this was just a joy to see. And I want to give a special shout out to all other yellow players and Fabled Beast players that were out there that went to Palm Springs. Seriously, I'm so happy that we could finally get yellow on the board, as it were, in such a capacity that it did, because I had personally felt that within my own internal testing, and obviously I shared my list, I've given some feedback on how, you know, Enterprise was just for Nova, but then Nova fell off, and there were some, you know, like 8 flex spots that you could do whatever you want with, and the Fabled Beast players from this weekend really showed the strength of this archetype. Again, very mid-range, and the other one that made top 8, very control-focused Fabled Beast, that you just have a good core package in the Yellow Nexus plus Hippocampo plan, and Air Vata just being a multi-blocker when you need it. God Beast being super cheap 8K blocker can be really nice in the mid-game. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can plan out for with this yellow Fabled Beast deck. I think that's why we saw it in such high, you know, numbers within top 16. Now, again, this does bring the natural conclusion to where does the meta go from here? And while not, you know, unbeatable by any means, because I had to beat a few in Vegas, but there are things like Nova that could come back if the format does slow down because of this list and another one that we're going to be talking about, another white, you know, tempo list. Fabled Beast might have a target on its back at a very minimum, right? Because we're getting Dual Eagle, which is going to supply the blessed strategy for this style of deck. I absolutely think that Fabled Beast has a target on it. So for those that are not familiar, Fabled Beast really is a deck that just wants to gum up the board, get some value off Hippocampo with Blessed against aggro decks, which is going to heal you one, which is, you know, not only heal, but then effectively ramp because they have to give you that core back at some point. And generally, if you're able to stick a couple hippos and they're able to connect, that is enough to win you the aggro matchup in some cases because of how the rest of the deck, you know, plays out. And then Behemoth just clears the way from you. What I really liked about this version in particular, though, is the shout out to the card bulk, the Fabled Beast 3-drop vanilla, just for more card draw. It's a 4K at 2 cores, so it gets around Burning Force, also gives you an early cheap blocker you can play. But the two that really caught me off guard was Calamity Beast, which, shout out, thank you for that, because I do love the artwork on that card, and the Elephant, which is probably no surprise to literally everyone who's been playing this deck, but I was foolishly trying to keep that one to myself. And I guess I'll just throw it out there. The other like crazy tech that's not crazy that I was talking about was Curse Dragon in this style of list, because God Beast makes your opponent keep all their stuff at 1. You play Curse Dragon, you clear the board, or you have Baculus, which is going to go into the new Dual Eagle plan, right? So the 2 of Splash Spot has a lot of flexibility in this list that you could put like 4 or 5 different cards if you really wanted, but Elephant just being that insurance against purple, which can be kind of a really awkward matchup for you sometimes. It goes long. Elephant, big body. If they have to kill it at some point, it's going to draw you a bunch more cards, give you more gas to close out the game, and just a very solid card to include overall. Burning Force for your Nexus stuff, Dream Bomb just being a nice key removal for things that are giving you a hard time. And then I really did like seeing that the 3rd Dream Bomb even in the sideboard, as well as Core Theft for problematic spirits. So very happy to see this list. I definitely will say until the end of time, there's like a 37 card list or whatever that you can start with Fabled Beast and do whatever you want with the rest of it. It is just that flexible and resilient of a core that I think it does need to be explored more, and it is something that is worth putting into your testing pools. Moving on from there, we have top 8 Purple Control with Spencer Freeman, who, shout out, also made top cut in Vegas. If I'm not mistaken, they were playing White Control there. They're now playing Purple Control here. Control players all the time, right? So This is one that I'm also going to have Ryan Miles on the channel later, who just won the 1K with Purple Control. He's someone that I know from other card games, has done very, very well. He loves Purple, will not stop talking about Purple, tries to get all of us to play Purple. And I really want this week to be focused on trying to highlight that Purple is not necessarily in a bad spot as it appears to be, but it does require a lot of patience and a lot of practice with the archetype to really know how to maneuver it and do well with it, where you can make to a top 8 like Spencer did. So huge shout out to Spencer with a, kind of soul control, whatever word that you want to give it, right? It's just Purple Control, but it has our Dark Bishop Oculus and Cursed Dragon combo, which is going to clear the board. And then of course we have our 4 and 5 drop package, which is going to go into Beldegor to allow you to bring it back from the graveyard. What was really interesting was to see the 4 Darklance Cavalier. I know that one is kind of an interesting point between a lot of players. You don't want to open yourself up to Star Blessed draw and giving your opponent +4, right? But it is a 4K for 2 cores that draws a card, and I gotta say, I miss playing this card in my version of Purple. I took it out. I posted my list on Twitter and whatnot that I was playing at locals. But man, I love that dude. It's it just hits all the right spots for you as long as you can dodge, Star Blessed draw. That it's just, I want to put it back in. I really do. Purple Smoke Valley for, the core stripping benefit goes really well with Core Drain. Netherworld Depths at a 2 of, which is really interesting because a lot of players have been spiking that up to 3 or 4 of in a lot of cases. But I do think Core Drain goes a long way. And then Deadly Balance and Absolute Ice Shield. Rounding it out is your typical spell package you would expect. Shout out to Bloody Rain in the sideboard, right? Really good tech against the, vomit the hand, go wide, white aggro strategies, because now they have to pay a core off their spirits whenever they want to attack. And spoiler, if you're going wide in white aggro, you don't have cores to spend. So it really is just extra Absolute Ice Shields in that regard, but it's one of those things where you reveal it once and they can probably play around it. Now that said, playing around it might mean that they lose automatically, right? Because if you're now playing white aggro and you have to have 2 cores and everything, probably Purple's going to be able to pick away your board or have enough blockers where that's not going to do it. So really love to see that. Tech coming through, Angelic Pressures, of course, for killing Fulas. And then the Maduke, a full set of Maduke, which I assume is just going to be for the white control and other kind of grindy, slow matchups, because with Maduke, you can just attack and say, hey, this is a 6K body. If you block it, because all your guys are higher, you're going to take a damage because Blood Curse is going to trigger, or I'm just going to, swing and you take a life either way. You got to take a life here one way or another unless you Dream Bomb it, right? So Dream Bomb is very good. I think that's something that we're going to see in a lot more sideboards. However, Dream Bomb only buys you a turn, and the Duke says, I am going to deal you a damage slowly but surely. It's coming at you. So that's one I expected to see, a 2 to a 3, but to see the full 4 is really a commitment to just how good Maduke can be in certain matchups. So love to see a list. And again, I think Purple Control is something that needs to be explored more. And maybe not more in the sense that the archetype has things missing from it. I think this is probably the least changed archetype from Vegas, all things considered, but it's still something that there are a few flex spots that you might want to look into, or again, just getting reps with it, because you need to have the reps with this style of deck, because there are too many avenues where you can make a mistake that'll end up costing you the game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where Purple Control goes from here. And I think, again, this is more or less a standard list that we would expect to put into your testing pools to use going forward. The other top 8 list, and I got to tell you, I think this one is the biggest takeaway from this past weekend. Once I saw this list and I saw what it was doing, and obviously it only got top 8, you might say, oh, well, if it was that good, it would have won, yada, 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 right? Ryan themselves did say, if you get paired up against the yellow, you're just absolutely dead. But if you're playing against these aggro decks, he crushed Rex, right? I think coming into this event and now going out of it, everyone is saying, well, Rex is the best deck. Rex is unbeatable. How do we handle the Rex deck? Well, it's this. And truthfully, aggro decks get a lot of splash damage because of this very particular style of deck. And I'm going to go one further. I think you can put Turbo Rex in this style of list and it would work very, very well. I know that's probably a hot take, but it was also a hot take that Fabled Beast was going to do well this weekend. So I'm just saying maybe I can be right twice. I really, really love the commitment to 4 Valkyrie Mist, 4 Odin, and 2 Buffalong Bill. Like, dude, just you're not having a board, right? Like you you are not sticking through this one. And then of course, like we have the whole tempo package, which is essentially those 4 cards, right? We have Snow, Valk, Odin, and Bill. And then we still have the top end white control. That's good stuff, right? You have the Elk, you have the 1 Durm Dino just to break control mirrors, and you have 4 Elephants because 4 Elephants is just good. Why wouldn't you play it? But can we just take a minute and appreciate the Dream Blizzard and the regain? Like, man, I got to give it all to Ryan. Like, I 100% predicted and expected a lot of what we saw. I did not see this coming a mile away. This is spicy. I love it. I think it is just absolutely wonderful. And I'm very curious to see how this list admittedly is going to change the meta in a very significant way. Because again, looking at the sideboard too, you can tech this a couple different ways where like purple control and some of these other decks that, you know, Valkyrie Mist might not be the most exciting thing against in some, depending on what their board state is, right? Because you don't want to just give them more free when summons. There's other stuff you can do. So I don't know what to say. Like, it's just a good, I know it's like a lot of people are going to say white control, but honestly, it's like way more white tempo than control. And I'm just truly in love with this list. I think from a meta standpoint and health overall, like where do we go from here? This is the list. This one right here is what I'm starting with and saying, no, look, y'all got to find a way to beat this. And obviously yellow, that's the big disclaimer I'll say here again. Yellow is obviously very, very good into this style of white in particular, but I think that's fine. Like, if you're telling me I'm going to crush everything else in the format and I'll just die to Fable Beast, I'll just dodge Fable Beast, man. I'll just play this, whatever. This list is gas. I cannot stress enough how much I like this. And again, let me live on cloud 9 for a minute. Like, with Turbo Rex, you get to kill their Freezetal, bounce something else, and just chip away their board every time. Or, like, bounce a Freezetal, Burning Force away, like a double Airvital. Like, there's so many play patterns that you can open up with this style of deck, or like Turbo Rex into Odin. That is just insane, and how much disruption it's going to give. That I think, and maybe this might just be the copium side of it, I think that you can make the matchup not as bad as Ryan made it sound like it was when they talked about it very, very briefly in the main Discord. But like I said, if my one big takeaway from this weekend, if nothing else, is you got to play this deck. I can't promise where it's going to end up from here, but this is immediately on my radar and immediately a must play in my opinion. So huge shout out to Ryan. I, again, was not expecting anything close to this. I think once you see how it plays out and some of the low options that this deck provides and the natural play patterns that change because of it, it is very spicy. Big fan of this one. And then last but not least is the 4 of Dread Knight Nemesis Curse. Don't call it aggro, mid-range. This one I absolutely love because it's something that I've had a very soft spot in my heart for. I did a video on it like 2 months ago because I really love, like, nothing feels better. I'm like an Aristocrats player, to use the old Magic term. But like, there's lines that you take where it's like, okay, swing with your 4-drop, doesn't matter what it is. They either like chump block it or they just take the damage anyways. Then swing with Nemesis, sacrifice your 4-drop to get all the value in the world off Nemesis, and then bring the Beldegor off of it, and also draw a card off Rotting Swamp. Like, in the video that we did, and maybe Daniel will attest to this as well, and our friend who made 17 on a very similar list, like, there are turns where they have to just Ice Shield on like 3 life because they go, oh crap, if he attacks with Nemesis next, I'm losing so much value because it's kill a guy, draw 3, and have a 10k body, kill something else, right? Like, he does, or I guess 8k if you don't have the guillotine, right? So 8k or 10k body if you have the guillotine play as well. That is very strong against a lot of boards, actually, it turns out. So you can force your opponent to just have to sack something early. And then what's really cool about this version, too, is you can just loop Dragonaga Assassin with Rotting Swamp, and that's fine, too. it's just a self-cycling proficient engine that can surprise a lot of decks as well. Because sure, he only goes up to 4K, but 1, dodges Burning Forest, 2, it has Curse. You're going to lose something. So I really am in love with this. And, you know, I think I played 3 Nemesis in my list, but the full commit to 4, absolutely love to see it. And then, of course, you still have your Curse Dragon and Dark Bishop combo, 2 Curse Dragon, and then a 1-1 split between main and side between Bishop. Obviously just being very good. 3rd copy of Dragon in the sideboard as well. And just some controlling options with the 4 of Suppression. So again, this is a list that it's not something I'm going to rush to call, you know, like tier 1 must play, all that good stuff. But it is something that I think is a lot better than a lot of people think it was. And once you get the value off Nemesis, it feels great. Like at the very least, if you're someone who's been playing purple for a while, and if you played like the purple control for so long, Nemesis is like what, $1.50, right? Go buy a playset of Nemesis and try out this list. It is super fun. Very excited to see it. Again, huge shout out to Dan on the top 16 Pro Tour invite, and to the rest of the top 16 and 32 for their Pro Tour invites. And it just really seemed like a very well ran event in general. So with that, a little bit longer, but that is a recap of all the archetypes, as it were, from Palm Springs Grand Open. What are your thoughts? Is there anything that took you by surprise? Is it, the white tempo, all going to be what it's cracked up to be, or is it a fluke because of all the red pterosaurs? Who knows, right? I'm very excited to see where this goes, but let me know in the comments down below what your favorite deck list was from the event and what you might be playing going forward. And I'll be honest, I was 100% sold on Fable Beast for Ohio. That was, ask anyone, that's what I was going to play, but that might be changing. I think this white tempo list is going to have a very significant impact on the meta, and because of that, it might change what else I want to play. And you might be saying, but you just said Fable Beast is so good into this list. It is, but if I am expecting that to be a prominent player, and it means that the people are coming off pterosaurs, where are they going? It's Nova, and that is not a place that I want to be. I played enough of that in Vegas. Yes, I did win more Nova matchups than not, but it's not a matchup that's fun to play. It's not, like the free 90-10 that the yellow decks into this version of white tempo might be, per Ryan's admission and for what they were saying about that matchup. But I'm very excited to see where the meta goes from here. And it's crazy to think we have been playing this format for 3 months at this point, and I'm excited to build new decks and test new stuff again. I love that this keeps happening. Honestly, like set 1 Dawn of History has got to be in my top 3 set 1 sets of all time. It's been super good. The meta is constantly evolving and shifting, and I really hope you are able to enjoy it as well. So with that is our top 16 recap. Tomorrow, we're going to have our friend talk about the Curse Nemesis deck that he piloted to the 17th or 16.5 spot that I like to say, because rest in peace tiebreakers. And then the video after that is going to be Ryan on Purple Control, who has, swears up and down it is like the go-to deck to play, and has done well and just won a bunch of money from the 1K out on the east side that, hey, Purple Control is here to stay. So really trying to hype up some purple decks because they deserve it too. And I think there is some more to this meta that probably should have been more than 2 purple decks in the top cut, but it is what it is. And all we have to say is we can look forward to the next one. So with that, my friends, enjoy these lists. I can't wait to hear what you are playing at your locals. But until then, be safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.